I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you for making this a part of your Wednesday. Hope that you are doing well tonight. We are in Exodus chapter 18 tonight. If you want to turn in your Bible, or if you want to scroll on your phone or tablet, Exodus chapter 18. As soon as everybody gets there, we'll open up with a word of prayer, and then we will get into the lesson. So, Exodus chapter 18. All right, let's have a word of prayer. Father, thank you for this evening, this time set aside to gather, to study a portion of your word, to see each other, encourage each other, build each other up. Father, we pray that by doing this, by mutually studying your word and intentionally building each other up, that we could end this day on a high note, on an encouraging note, and to get us through the rest of this week, whatever it is that we may contend with. We're thankful, Father, that you have provided all that we need in your Son, and we're thankful for your word that we can read and not just gain information, but with each and every Bible study we have, both Old and New Testament, we read so that we can be transformed and we can become the light of the world and point people to Christ. Thank you for everything you do for us, and it's in His name we pray. Amen. All right, Exodus 18. We're going to go to the book of Proverbs in just a minute as well. So just kind of mark your spot there, have something to hold your spot as we'll flip back and forth. So just very quickly, we're going to look at verses 13 through 27 mainly tonight. But just verses 1 through 12, just kind of as a side note. I don't want to ignore it and pretend that it's not there. But these verses fill in the blanks concerning Moses' family. Chapter 18, verses 1 through 12. They kind of just disappear from the text. Once he leaves Midian, goes back to Egypt, you don't hear much else when it comes to his wife, when it comes to his two sons. But Moses is a married man, and it just makes you wonder, where's she been? What have they been doing? It just kind of reminds us, hey, they're still here, and they're still part of the story. If you want to read a parallel with this, Zipporah has a very interesting, I guess you could say, discussion and an event that takes place in Exodus 4, 18 through 26. That's really about her, and really at that moment, as a woman, and as Moses' wife, in that moment and in that context, she shows herself to be more righteous than even Moses, because she is inevitably the one that makes it to where he's circumcised, and the children, the two sons, are circumcised as well. And then we're reintroduced to Jethro, who is Moses' father-in-law, Zipporah's father, priest from Midian, spent 40 years with him after he had left Egypt the first time. So we're kind of reintroduced to everybody. And we're not going to read verses 13 through 27, but I do want to look at verse 19, because I built tonight's class around something that Jethro has to say in verse 19. It's actually just one word. I took it out and built everything around it. So Jethro recognizes the problems going on, and as anybody who's astute, and he interjects himself. And this is Jethro speaking to Moses. He says, "Now obey my voice, I will give you advice, and God be with you. You shall represent the people before God and bring their cases to God." What I wanted to lift was the word advice, the English Standard Word that gives advice. Maybe you have a little bit of a different rendering. But tonight, I just want to talk about advice. How do you give advice? How do you receive advice? What makes a good advisor? The time will come in our life where we need advice. And so when we seek it out, what are you looking for? Not just it, but who? Who is going to be the one? What qualities, what characteristics does he or she have? What does it take to receive advice? What does it take? What kind of person? What kind of heart? What kind of mind? What kind of ears? Things like that that we want to look at. So before we go any further, define advice. What is it? What is advice? What is your definition? Do you want to Google? That's fine, and we'll go with the technical one. But you give me just a working definition for you. Yes, ma'am.
Recommendation or counsel.
Okay, a recommendation. If you didn't hear Michelle, recommendation and/or counsel. All right. What else? How would you define advice?
From someone trusted.
Okay, so it's trustworthy. Someone trusting, someone trustworthy, and then it, by virtue of that, you would hope would be trustworthy advice, okay? So it's trustworthy, recommendation, counsel.
Someone who's trying to give you advice that will either help you or save you from something.
Okay, all right. So perhaps the advice, a definition, something that will help, something that will save, something that will benefit. Okay, what else?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. All right. You're kind of just presupposing this individual, he or she, has some knowledge of whatever it is that is going on. All right. What else?
Experience.
Oh, okay. So experience. Advice is kind of based in experience. Live through this. You kind of learned as you went along with it. Yes, ma'am.
I hear you all defining advice in a positive light, but there is such a thing as bad advice.
Okay. I was waiting for somebody to say it can be bad. All right. It can be bad for a variety of reasons. And we'll mention that a little bit. But yes, I was waiting for someone to say not so good or bad or something like that. Go ahead, David.
I was thinking the same thing because advice is usually free and it's worth twice what you paid for it.
Okay. And we will quote David on that, and that is a good thing. It's usually free. Whether you want it or not, it's usually free. And then, yes, it's worth twice what you pay for. So all of this in terms of advice, all of these are good. A basic definition. Advice is guidance. So you mentioned recommendations, counsel. Guidance, recommendations offered with regard to prudent future action. Okay? So there's still some unpacking of that, but it's someone who says there's something coming down the line 5 minutes from now, 5 days, whatever it is. And I really don't know what to do. So I need to go find someone, whether it's experience, whether it's knowledge, someone trustworthy, whatever it is. I need somebody outside, right? We would say someone who's got an outside looking in. We would kind of define it that way. Someone outside looking in. They're not walking in my shoes. They don't have to make the decision. So advice is almost opinionated. Advice is kind of take it or leave it if you want to. Michelle mentioned advice is bad. Can you think of an example in the Old Testament where someone got really bad advice because he wanted?
Job.
Oh, okay. So maybe Job. I wasn't thinking of Job, but Job could be that one with his 4 friends. All right.
One of David's sons, which one was it? They got advice from his friends instead of the elders.
It was Solomon's son, Rehoboam.
Yes.
Now, what Rehoboam did was that he wanted that because he did not want to be told what he needed to hear. So sometimes in terms of advice, what makes it bad is I'm going to be selective with who I get because I just don't want you to tell me what I need to hear. I need somebody to tell me what I want. And when it comes to this, and this is for all of us as adults, and this will work with our children as well, we can always find someone to tell us what we want to hear. We can always find that. You don't have to go very far to find that. And Rehoboam is a good example of he pushes out advisors for himself as a king, older individuals, and surrounds himself with his friends, to be quite honest with you. It's not even just people his own age. It's people that are his friends. So it's misguided trust in that. But it's because he knows that's what he is going to get. So the Bible really gives us pictures on both ends. So this one that we're looking at tonight is going to be on a positive light. So let's look at a couple of Proverbs. So hold your spot in Exodus 18 and turn to Proverbs 12:15. We're just going to look at individual Proverbs. We're not going to look at all of them. It's exhaustive. So hopefully you'll do a little bit of work and maybe further the study on advice. But Proverbs 12:15. Proverbs 12:15, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. So if we completely cut out advice, if we completely cut out those who could help us, Solomon essentially says one of the biggest fools in life, one of the most foolish things we can do is to completely ignore outside words. It's one of the most foolish things. And that's how we live up to becoming a fool, if you will. Proverbs 13:10.
Say that again, would you please? What you just said.
You didn't know it either. You're the fool. Being a fool. One of the fastest ways to become a fool, or one of the most foolish things to do, is to ignore advice, to not seek it out, to ignore it, anything like that. If not just be foolish, but I know we kind of talk about it in a derogatory way, but there are a lot of fools because they're hearing wisdom, but it's going in one ear and out the other. Proverbs 13:10. Will you just go one chapter over? Proverbs 13:10. By insolence comes nothing but strife, but with those who take advice is wisdom. And then going over to chapter 19, if you want to go there, 19 and verse 20. 19 and verse 20. Listen to advice and accept instruction, that you may gain wisdom in the future. Now, there's a whole lot more. Speaks to give you a lot more balance in terms of what's healthy, non-healthy, and things like that. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer the question to begin with, but while I'm talking, I want you to do two things. I want you to pay attention. I know we can multitask. I know it's Wednesday night, so we didn't really do much today, right? Try your best. I'm going to give you what I think are the answers from the text, but then I'm going to ask you a question based on your own. What would you add? Okay, so the question that I'm going to ask is this: what makes Jethro a good advisor? Because he's going to give advice, all right? I'm looking at this. Let me give you some advice. So I'm going to give you some things from the text that you can write down. Here's what makes him credible. Here's what makes him able to step in and just give advice. What I want you to do is, when we're done, I would like for you to add to that list. Whether it's from other biblical passages, whether it's experience, I want you to add what would make Jethro a good advisor. And the reason we're going to do it twofold is because ultimately we're going to be in Moses' position. And we're going to have to decide first and foremost, not on the advice, but on the advisor. Not on the advice, but on the advisor. So what makes Jethro a great advisor? First and foremost, he's Moses' father-in-law. You notice if you read through this, and I'm not going to do it for the sake of time, but if you read through it, Jethro doesn't wait for Moses to ask. He just kind of steps in. And a lot of times we take a passive role for that, and we probably should. That's one of the wisest things we could. Even if we are kind of seeing things, I probably should say something, but I'm not. Sometimes that's the best thing to do. I wish we could probably do that a whole lot more. But Jethro sees something happening with Moses. He sees something going on. And it's almost as if I've got to step in, because if I don't step in, this isn't going to end well. So remember, Moses is trying cases day after day, night after night. It's just a constant of case number 1, case number 2, and he's the only one. And he's going to suffer from what we call burnout. And Jethro sees that. If you keep up at this pace, it's just not going to happen. So let me give you a piece of advice. So before we do that, Jethro recognizes, I can actually say this because I've got an established relationship with Moses. One of the reasons why the 4 friends of Job were unqualified to give the wisdom and the advice that they did was because they did not have the relationship they should have had with Job. And they believed they did, which they believed in turn gave them the microphone to be able to say something, and they did. Sometimes we speak and we wonder why somebody didn't hear us. And part of it could be you just don't have the relationship with them on a trusted enough level. Doesn't mean that you can't get there, but it doesn't mean that everybody should just hear what I have to say. Right? We're not as wise as we think, and we need to be aware of that. But if you happen to see someone in your own life, your son, your daughter, your spouse, someone that you do have a trusted relationship with, and you find yourself as the dispenser of advice, don't minimize your existing relationship. Don't minimize that. And don't say, well, I can't really say something. Well, yes, you can. If you're a parent, say something. Obviously how you say and all of that matters, but say something. Interject in that. And Jethro does that. So he's an established, trusted relationship. He's a father-in-law. And by the way, how many years did Moses spend with Jethro? 40. So that's a good amount of time, yes.
My mentor used to say you have to earn the right.
Okay, you earn the right. Just day in and day out, in virtue of that. The other thing is, Jethro's a priest. So what would that mean for his advice? What's it rooted in? I hear you whispering.
Service to God.
Okay, service to God. We don't know how he became a priest. We don't know how he learned, but we're assuming that he is a priest of God serving in Midian. So that means that whatever he's going to say is going to be blank advice. It's going to be what? It would be godly. Again, I'm assuming, we're assuming that he's going to have that. But it would be godly. How many of you have had friends or family that are brothers or sisters in Christ, but they got advice from an ungodly source or an unbiblical source? You raise your hand, Justin. No, okay, I thought you preemptive. How many of you have known anybody like that? I mean, we've known some, and I'm not saying that all of it's that non-biblical advice is bad. But Bob's definition of someone who's going to help you, well, where are they getting their information from? Where are they rooted? So experience matters. But what is experience without the anchor of God's wisdom and the anchor of God's word? Glenn mentioned trustworthiness. Well, that's fine, and you earn the right. But what is that if it's not anchored to godly aspects of it? Jethro can speak to this because he is going to have a biblical or godly worldview, as we would say. Again, I'm not saying that the person you work with who may not be a Christian or may not be some sort of believer or something of that background, I'm not saying cut them out. Don't hear me wrong. But if you're going to take something that's going to impact your life, be careful. Now again, just because somebody has a godly background doesn't mean that that's guaranteed either. Right? So I don't want to pretend that on the other side. That somebody who says I'm a Christian, boom, automatically I'll give you my trust. That's not smart either. There's a pattern of behavior that you need to pay attention to. There's a pattern of decision making by an individual. Right? Sometimes somebody can have a name or a title, but their pattern of decision making, I don't think I need to listen to you. Because that's just not smart. Making sense? Okay? So he's a priest. One of the things that he does is that he actually observes. We don't know how long he does this. It could be days. It could be just hours. We don't know. But what we do see in verse 14 is, I see this. It says that Jethro sees. Jethro saw. But that's not just the fact that he sees like you see me and I see you. He's actually observing. He is seeing Moses just a person or case paraded, one right after the other. And my assumption is that he probably sees, well, when do you go to the bathroom? When did you eat lunch? You got here how early? You're staying how late? You got a wife and 2 sons. These are the things that he's probably seeing. He's observing. So before he gives his advice, he just watches. He just watches. He observes. You can learn a lot. I can learn a lot. If we would just observe. If we would just observe. Not, I saw this one thing and now here's my 2 cents. No. If you just saw it one time, then that's probably as valuable as 2 cents. Observe. If you want to be a good advisor, observe. Watch. Not for the purpose of judgment, not for the purpose of browbeating, just, hey, this is healthy. Hey, this is unhealthy. Right? That's what you do. So that's what we all do. Jethro observes. The end of verse 14, Jethro asks a lot of questions. He asks a lot of questions. You're kind of thinking to yourself, well, if you're seeing all of this, why are you asking? There's a lot of wisdom. What good is advice if Moses is unaware of the current pattern he's in? Moses doesn't see. He may feel it, but Moses doesn't see this. He just sees, God gave me a task. I need to accomplish this task. If it takes 12 hours, if it takes 18 hours, if it takes 20 hours, then so be it. But I'll accomplish it. The way to waken Moses to what's going on is questions. And he asks a lot of questions. Sometimes it's not investigative, because he's already watched. It's just he's trying to get Moses to wake up to, I see this space. You don't see it. I need you to see it. So he asks questions. Verse 17. When he finally starts speaking, he actually speaks with an end in mind. Hey, if you keep going at the pace you're going, what's going to happen to you? Let's just talk about the end. Let's just hit the fast forward button and get there. If you keep doing what you're doing, what's going to happen?
Going to wear out.
That's the end, right? That's what's going to happen. And I don't want it, you don't want it, and certainly the Lord doesn't want it, because he didn't put you in this position to have that. Because if you end up wearing out, who's going to do the cases? Who's going to help? Who's going to do all of these things, right? It ends up being more, about to say more bad. Forgive me for the thing. It ends up being terrible. It ends up being terrible for everybody, right? It ends up being terrible for everybody. Where Moses thinks that for the short term, he's doing what's best for everybody, and he probably is. Long term, he's putting himself and he's putting the nation of Israel at a huge, huge risk. Huge risk. So Jethro diagnoses the result, and then, and only then, with the latter half of verse 19 through 22, he offers a solution. And think about how many times when we're an advisor, or if we're on the receiving end of somebody who advises us, they're quick to say, here's the solution. There's just, let me solve the problem. I see this, boom, here it is. You ever just kind of thought in your mind when that's happening is, I really don't need a solving of the problem right now. I just need somebody to help. And we think that helping is solving the problem, and that's understandable, because we're all fixers to a certain extent. Everybody is. But we're so quick to go from observing to solution that we skip everything in the between. What makes Jethro a good advisor? What makes him a credible source? Because Moses doesn't put up a fight. He doesn't say, he doesn't bicker back and forth. He doesn't say, well, you don't know, or you can't imagine. He doesn't do any of that. Moses just, boom, he accepts it. Well, why? Established relationship. It's going to be God-oriented. He observes. He just takes his time. He asks questions to wake Moses up. He diagnoses the end. Let's just say you keep up with what you're doing. What's going to happen? You will suffer. Your wife will suffer. Your kids will suffer. The nation will suffer. Everybody's going to suffer because you can't do it all. And then he offers the solution. So now it's your turn. What would you add?
Mutual respect.
Okay, mutual respect. Why would that be so key?
Well, I was just thinking, he realizes that his father-in-law, Jethro, was, has had maybe solutions in the past, or they have such a good relationship that he respects his opinions, and so he wants to listen to it. And he's probably, since Moses has been with him so many years, he's probably sees how Moses works as well, and decisions he's made in the past, and they can probably feed off of each other maybe.
Okay, no, I think those, so you didn't hear what she said to begin with. It's just a mutual respect that exists between the two. And that's 40 years of probably working together and learning from each other and all of that. But there is a mutual respect that exists in that. And that's usually just one of those that takes time. But at some point, it comes time to kind of cash that in and use it. What else would you add to the list?
I would say it's all positive. He doesn't ridicule him, he doesn't demean him.
Okay.
It's positive, he has a solution for it. Like you said, he had the solution, but he didn't ridicule him.
Okay. So yeah, he didn't just come out, what are you doing? What are you thinking? you're hurting my daughter, you're hurting my grandsons. He doesn't go on any of the perceived negative aspects of it. So you're right, it's a positive base. What else?
Jethro, as the advisor, has the best interests of the advisee at heart. I think that's key.
Okay, all right. He has the best interest of Moses. And of course, if Moses is obviously in a better place, then the whole nation will be. So for sure, yes.
He was the head of a large family.
Okay.
Had experience dealing with a group.
Okay, so just by virtue of experience, and this goes to Tom's point, he's got a head of a large family. He's probably got large flocks. So he has a lot of people that probably worked under him, and maybe his delegation isn't a light bulb going off that he never thought of before, but he looked at a similar experience and said, I've seen this before. I've seen this play out before. But you're right. Jethro is rooted in his own life and his own experiences. Yes?
It's similar to what we have in the church today with a plurality of elders.
Okay.
Helping out, instead of one person doing it all.
Okay, instead of one person doing it all, you got a plurality of elders. And Linda and I were talking about this, a secondary lesson would be that, a church structure, where you have a plurality of elders, but then if it's a healthy and mature church, what would you have under that? Deacons. And then after that, you would have members. You would have members. You have the whole list, and you could break it, but you're absolutely right, Russell. It is into that. Go ahead.
Jethro has some distance from the situation. He wasn't part of the group coming out. He didn't experience the plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, the water from the rock. Somebody caught up in all that might be just like, it's got to be Moses. Moses has to do it all. Yep. Moses has God with him. He can do it all. Mm-hmm. But Jethro had the distance to be able to say, you're a good guy, Moses, but you need some help.
Okay. All right. So that distance is a huge, it's very underestimated, but it's a huge component. And if you didn't hear what Jeff said, if you were someone who was traveling with the group from the very beginning, well, we succeeded when Moses. We got water when Moses. We got food when Moses is the focal point. So it would be natural to think he will always be the focal point. And Jethro comes in and says, you can still be the focal point. There's just a different way of doing it. But that distance is something. Now where you're raising your hand.
I did. So Jethro, he seemed to pick the thing. He's not nitpicky. It was something he found important. Maybe if he did it every week, Moses would have disregarded. But then I think Moses' attitude also, it's unsolicited advice.
Yes.
He could have flown off the handle like we do sometimes when people give us unsolicited advice. But he didn't. He listened to it.
Yep. Now, and put a pin in that because we're going to reverse that because this is only half of it. Jethro's got a role, and then obviously Moses has a role. If you didn't hear what Justin had to say with Jethro, he could have easily, we don't know how long you've been traveling, but let's assume a couple of weeks. He could have done it every day. It could have just been repetitive. Just, I'm going to hammer this nail. I'm going to hammer this nail. But he doesn't do it. He picks his spot. He picks the time. He picks the spot. He picks the environment. All of these things. Sometimes advice, when it's given, and we come back and say, I don't know why it wasn't heard. Well, did we consider the environment? The worst time to give advice is on Wednesday night at 7:30 in the morning, at night when we're tired. Right? I know we have to have conversations, I get it. But if something can be given when somebody's fresh, good cup of coffee, you're better suited to hear. You're better suited to be heard. So he doesn't nitpick. I like that.
So that plus, it's not like he was telling Moses, okay, I don't like your robe this day, or your sandals the next one, or how you smoke the rock. It's not everything. This was a big, important thing that he wanted to point out.
Yeah. So that is a really good point because we'll see in just a second, Moses could have viewed it as criticism, and it's not. But he would have easier seen that if he had just, hey, you should have hit the rock with two hands instead of one, right? What would have happened if you kicked it instead? Little things like that. But you're right, Justin, because sometimes we can get nitpicky. Sometimes we can put somebody under a microscope so far that we lose the ability.
In the majority of my life that is past, some of the times I regret the most is when I did not do that and had the opportunity.
Yep.
Not a lot, but I remember every one I didn't.
And I know none of the rest of us aren't talking, but I think we would say amen to that as well.
I think too that he got Moses to listen maybe because, he said, listen to me, obey my voice, and may God be with you.
Okay?
Let God confirm to you what I'm saying as good advice.
Yep.
You trusted in God so far, and you're doing this because of God, but take my advice and may God be with you. Maybe that's to confirm what I just told you to do.
And I think that's rooted in the fact that he's a priest. So he takes off, kind of to a certain extent, the father-in-law hat and puts on that priest hat for a moment. This isn't meant to be a curse or a browbeating session. This is, you will find a blessing at the end of this advice. This is a God be with you. So it's God-rooted, God-oriented in that. So, go ahead.
It's just to add on to the relationship. There are relationships and there are relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And the word I would add to that is love. Because I have a relationship with a lot of folks here, but it's not the same as when I have with Margaret.
Right.
And so I'm more likely to take advice from Margaret anyway. But but anyway, for someone that you have that much of that depth of a relationship.
Sure. No, love is there, and because love is there, then there's mutual respect, there will be trustworthiness, and all the other things that make it productive. So Justin had a good point about Moses. This is unsolicited. Jethro's kind of taking a risk. I know it's not recorded, but if I'm Jethro, it's kind of, I'm waffling. Do I say something? Do I not say something? Is it the time? What if he does fly off the handle? What if he does get offended? What if it's whatever? What if? And this isn't just my son-in-law. This is the leader of an entire nation of people. So this is a big individual. All of that's there, and Jethro obviously crosses the bridge. Let's put it on where Moses is as the receiver of the advice. What makes Moses a great receiver of advice? David?
I guess I'll take you a little bit off subject, but relate this to Deuteronomy 1:13. I figured this is the same story, but repeated in the second book.
You're talking about with the 70 elders, and is that what that is? I'm not there yet. Is that what you're talking about? That's why I'm going off of memory.
I don't remember 70 elders, but it's the kind of the same story.
115,
It's
Yeah.
around Deuteronomy 1:13 plus or
Yeah,
minus.
yeah, it is. It is. No, it is. It's the same.
That's what I was curious about. I kind
Yeah.
of thought it was.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the shorthand version, and it's Moses' version.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's the same. It's the
Reader's
same.
Digest.
What makes Moses a great receiver of advice?
Since he sent his wife to be with her father, I think he had to listen.
Okay, he had to listen, yeah. Well, that is one thing for sure that we get, because he actually, how do we know we listened, is that he actually did it. Right? That's how you know someone's listening, when they actually do it. So he listened for sure. But even with that, what's embedded in that? What does it take for a person to listen to this? Humility? Trust. Sorry. It's not just that Jethro's got to trust, obviously, in himself or whatever, but Moses is going to have to take a little bit of a leap of faith here on that. Okay?
Recognize the problem.
All right. He had to recognize himself,
Acknowledge the problem.
acknowledge it, which I think Deuteronomy's version, Moses' version, is a direct result of his father-in-law asking the questions.
Yeah.
And it's, well, now that you mention it, and I've got a little bit of distance myself from all of this, yeah, I don't know why I thought I could do it, but I can. Okay? What else?
Desire to learn and grow.
Okay, desire to learn and grow. How about just the desire to succeed? He cannot step down from the role, can he? Moses, can he step down from the role? There's no stepping down from it. So the next best thing is I can't do that, So that's part of the recognition, not just the issue. But I can't leave the role. So the next best thing then is, how do I make it work? And in this case, I need outside help. And this is what's so valuable about last week's lesson, when Aaron and Hur lifted up the arms of Moses when he couldn't do it. There are times we are always going to need God's help, but there are times where we're going to need the help of each other. And sometimes it's going to be physical. I'll cook you dinner, I'll clean your home, I'll wash your clothes, I'll do whatever. And sometimes it's over a cup of coffee at a dinner table and you're just talking. But it's helpful. And Moses is willing to listen because he has humility, but also Moses made a choice. And sometimes we walk away and feel like the person didn't hear us. And sometimes it may be true because they made a choice not to. Or they made a choice to do so. But that's not on us. If a person listens, if a person doesn't listen, that's not on me. But if Bob has given me advice and I choose to listen or I don't listen, that's not on him. I could easily, Justin mentioned this, I could easily just get offended. And I could just easily get in a tizzy. And I could just easily just get whatever it may be. Or I can have an open mind, weigh what's being said, and if it's still not good, then throw it away. But to just dismiss it, so quickly on anything.
It may have been because the people lined up from morning till night that Moses didn't realize the fix he was in until somebody told him.
That's true too.
Because the people kept coming, he had to make a decision, right or wrong or whatever, to listen to everybody, listen to their little complaint and the large complaint.
Yes.
He had to handle it all.
All of it.
But I got so much going on now, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah. A bit off more than I chew.
Yeah.
And the thing is that he probably didn't notice that because he could do it. He did it to begin with. But eventually catches up and somebody comes to speak. Now Moses has a choice. He can take what his father-in-law is saying and he can chew on it and he can do whatever and not take it. Or chew on it and meditate on it and take it. It's up to him. So Moses makes a choice, but what guides Moses in that? It's humility. It's a recognition. What else would you say? Very quickly. I know we got just a few minutes left.
He's only human,
Okay. I'm wearing out. I'm just plain tired. That's what, with David, you bringing up the Deuteronomy passage, that's what he admits. I'm just plain tired. What I'm doing is not working. And what is the definition of insanity? Anybody know?
The same thing expecting different results.
Okay. Right? However long he's been doing it, it's not working. Because if you didn't hear Mike, and I'm glad you brought it up, brother, it's little and big things. Can you imagine your entire day is just constant little and big, little and big, little and big, and you're probably thinking, yeah, I lived that today.
My brother took my math.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's also something he did not say, and that is, who do you think you are?
Yep.
Because he obviously knew who he was. He obviously had that relationship. All these things are going for them.
Sure.
So it makes life a little easier.
It makes it a little easier. It makes it a little easier. The point on this, and I hope that it's helped a little bit, is that sometimes we will find ourselves in the role of Moses. And when that happens, this is why it's so important that we cultivate the fruit of the Spirit in the life of Christ, that is humility. Because we won't listen to someone saying something as a criticism, but because they love us and because they're trying to help, whatever it is. And the way they're doing it is not to make a mess of our life, but the end result, make life better, whatever it is. And then sometimes we will be in the role of Jethro. And when you find yourself in that role, don't take it too lightly. Don't miss the opportunity. But be methodical in how you do it. And for those of us that have kids, we're on the job training. And we learn. Which is why we learn another valuable thing. The Lord is always faithful. And that, to me, the biggest quality of Jethro is the fact that he's a priest. and he said, God be with you. Do not discount someone who's coming from a biblical background and godly background. Doesn't mean you can always be guaranteed. Please remember that. But also don't discount it. As the proverb said, the fool is the one who doesn't listen. But the wise one is the one who can hear the advice and take it. Wherever you find yourself in, whether you're a Moses or a Jethro, I hope this has been a little bit of help to you and benefit. So the class is yours.